Hey, what's up, everybody? Chad Kalick here, and welcome back to the In a Crowded Room podcast, where on this episode we are going to talk about a UFO documentary I just watched, and to be honest, it was very confusing. If you guys haven't heard about it yet, it is this documentary called Above Top Secret. Now, what's really kind of strange about the documentary is, first off, there's at least one, if not two, other documentaries called Above Top Secret that are about the UFO phenomenon and the narrative. But what's really bizarre about this documentary was that from watching the trailer to it, and by the way, it did very well. It was number one on Apple iTunes or Apple Plus when it came out, and did well on Amazon, and they had pretty good coverage with it. Whoever it was, whoever the marketing company was, they spent a decent amount of coin putting it out there, because I saw a lot of ads in the paid advertisement spots, and so yeah, I definitely knew about it. And like I said, the trailer appeared to be like it was a new Steven Greer documentary. Now, Dr. Greer did the serious documentary about the little alien guy found in Peru, which was very good, a very good documentary. I thought, if you haven't seen it, check it out. And he did another one that I thought was the best out of all three of his films, which was called Unacknowledged. And that was really about, the different dark black companies, dark groups, the companies that are not necessarily ran by the government, but they are funded through basically stealing money from the government. Remember when Rumsfeld, said $2.3 trillion was missing, or something crazy like that, right before 9/11 happened? There's a belief that a lot of that money goes into these unacknowledged programs, dark programs, that are basically off the books and are not under the command of the commander-in-chief, the president. So they can kind of, work under their own playbook. And people have known for a long time that these type of these dark, or, I'm looking for the word for what you would call it, but these unacknowledged groups, these unacknowledged departments, they've known for a long time that they exist. A while ago, there was a documentary that I saw, which there's several of these groups that exist within the industrial military complex that basically act as hitmen and assassins and things. And our country has that. We have groups of people that, their job is to basically, do the dirty work that you can't talk about on the news and you can't talk about on podcasts. And, there's been several military people that have come forward to talk about these types of groups. But as it turns out, there are and have been different groups that investigate UFOs. We've recently heard about a few of them, this OSAP, and the other groups that basically Tom DeLonge and Lou Elizondo and that group kind of brought forward and exposed. But this has been going on for a long time. But what was really cool about Greer's Unacknowledged documentary, what I thought was really cool about it, is that there was just a lot of paperwork, verifiable stuff, like things that aren't just his opinion. I like Greer, but my only real issue with him is that he has a tendency to believe, I think, that everything on planet Earth is connected to the UFO phenomena. Like, he believes that Marilyn Monroe was assassinated because she reportedly threatened to go public with her knowledge of unacknowledged groups and UFOs, and this was shortly after, Marilyn was, banned from coming around, the White House or to other events. But, you look at that situation, you're like, well, was that the case? Or if she was assassinated, was it because she knew information about UFOs, or was it because she was deep dicking both the brothers, Bobby and John and JFK, and they found out, and between the both of them, she probably had, a ton of information, and not just UFO stuff, and she became a liability. And that was at a very dark time in regards to the FBI and the CIA, and but Greer would tell you absolutely it was UFOs. That's why Marilyn was struck down, and anyways, that would be my only thing with Greer that kind of bothers me, beyond some fundamental beliefs that I just don't agree with, and which brings me to his third film, which was CE5, or Close Encounters of the Fifth Kind, which is a protocol that he developed, which he claims he is able to make contact with these extraterrestrial beings and literally guide them to his location through this. Basically, it's meditation. That's all it really is, a meditation. And it's as simple as this. He sits out in the desert and he's, meditates, and he says in his mind, he pictures, whatever image comes up in his brain, he just goes with it. Psychics often talk about this, where you don't question what you receive, you just go with it. So he gets a vision in his mind of what these aliens are, where they're at, what they look like, and he basically invites them, through his mind, not speaking, to come to where he's at. He says to essentially picture a wormhole or a portal through the universe or the galaxy, the Milky Way, and picture that wormhole basically dumping them out right above where you would be meditating. And then supposedly you're supposed to tell them that you're peaceful, you don't want war, you don't want anything, and he has a ton of footage that he says is authentic UFO footage. Now, the CE5 documentary, that was the third one he did. That was the hardest one that I had a problem with, and it really made me. I almost wished I didn't see it, because it just made me question him a little bit more. First off, when it comes to the CE5 and this idea that we can subconsciously contact alien species, and that consciousness is like the last frontier of dimensions, and there's a lot of that I could actually get down with. I'm not to say that I know anything about it, but in concept, conceptually, there's a lot to suggest that consciousness is in fact a dimension, and that we can in fact create things through the conscious and the subconscious mind, which I did a whole film. My favorite film of mine ever, A Blood Red Sky, is all about essentially that, the idea that you will ultimately get out of life what you want and expect to get out of life. And we went to Chillingham Castle to do a series of experiments, and when it was all said and done, and if you guys that have seen A Blood Red Sky, I mean, that is as legit as it gets. That was the easiest film I've ever had to edit, because it was just, you're just watching what happened. Chronologically, in order, you are watching what happened. And for each person that went in to do our investigation, we basically did this investigation where we would change the person's circumstances, and we would send them in alone to investigate Chillingham Castle, a place that none of us had been to before, completely brand new. We were definitely strangers in a strange land on purpose. And for example, I went in completely normal as the control. Just, and when I say normal, I mean nothing. I slept well. I ate well. There was no kind of aggravation or undue stress that I put myself under. I just went in as an investigator that wanted to experience activity, and boy, did I. In fact, it was arguably the most intense thing I've ever captured on film, which was this massively heavy cushion on this pew in the church that I was in, launched itself at me. And caught it on camera. But Mary Beth went through, after sleep deprivation. She had slept maybe 2 hours over the course of 72 hours. And she was miserable. She did not even want to do the investigation. The whole time, all she wanted was a bed. She just wanted to get out of there, and she wanted a bed. And she wasn't voicing this, but we just knew that's what she wanted. Like, she wasn't walking around in the investigation going, I want a bed. I mean, she was actually investigating and trying to provoke and create an experience and create any activity if she could, but she just wanted to sleep. And what happened is, all of us watching her, we fell asleep. We all experienced what she wanted and what she put out there. And we had all slept fine. Justin underwent sensory aggravation, and he was super stressed out. He was made to watch these horrific videos with agonizing volume of sound of multiple soundtracks and sound effects and things that would just absolutely drive you insane. And during his investigation, all hell broke loose in that that castle. And again, we were all experiencing what he was feeling and experiencing. So there were, my point being, I don't want to explain the entire film, but my point being is, although I think there's something very real about consciousness being a dimension, I just didn't buy Dr. Greer's, I just sit down and picture an alien and tell them where I'm at and visualize it. Because that, first off, that doesn't seem subconscious to me. That seems like you're creating something, like you're knowingly trying to manifest something. And I think that's, manifestation is very different than subconscious thought. And so I didn't really get that. And I tried CE5 several times. Nothing ever happened. To me, maybe, I don't know, maybe I'm doing it wrong. I never just want to shut things out and say, they're wrong. But I don't know, nothing ever happened. Now, a lot of people get down on Greer about that because they're like, he's charging money. Oh my God, he's charging money. He's, people come out to the desert and they pay to be there. Good, because if you really want to study this field or the paranormal in general, it's going to take money. It's just like, it always cracks me up when, I get these messages from guys. A couple months ago, I got one, and Thomas and I were just kind of talking about it, going, this is ridiculous. The start of the message is how this guy loved A Blood Red Sky so much. And at the end, he was like, the only thing that, kind of bummed me out is that, I saw that you were, charging for, events and merchandise and DVDs. And it just made me kind of question, basically where your heart was and all that. I'm just sitting here going, you love Chillingham Castle. How is that supposed to get made? It costs money, man. It costs a lot of money to go over to England and to shoot a movie and come. I mean, this idea that if someone is trying to make money off something they're passionate about, that is somehow a disqualifier I think is the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. I think, if anything, what's held the paranormal field back is, this idea that, you know, you can't charge anybody for anything, and you can't sell anything, and everything's got to be free. And it's like, well, that's ridiculous, because first off, we need a sweeping amount of new equipment and new inventions to measure this activity that is only being held back by the fact that there's not funding for these things. And, we need our top scientists to be funded and working on, equipment that can kind of try to understand what it is that we're experiencing with the paranormal, because we are experiencing something, and we are filming things that don't make sense. Ghosts have been captured on film. Even though at times it might be hard to get an entire picture, the entire full body apparition, things have been filmed. I mean, look at the no face footage. That is legitimate. That is an entity. That's not human. Things have been filmed moving. Things have been filmed floating. Like EVPs don't make any sense. So there's, all of this stuff needs to be researched on a level that's serious. And as long as people are going to sit back and go, well, if you're trying to make a living off something you love, I mean, that just disqualifies you. I mean, that is ridiculous, No one gets upset that a doctor gets paid, and no one would go to a doctor and go, well, I need the doctor in here that doesn't want money, because that means he really cares. It's like, no, I want the doctor who's paid the most because he's the best and has the best equipment and can get the best results, So it's not this idea that Steven Greer is some terrible person because he's charging money, for merchandise or for events or anything. I say more power to him. You can't reach the world on peanuts, I mean, you've got to, it costs money. It costs a lot of money to get the word out there and to create something that, everybody can see, like a film. So that didn't bother me about him. But like I said, what bothered me about CE5, there was also some evidence in CE5 that his third film that just didn't make any sense to me. Things that he was saying were extraterrestrials that he caught on film, which to me, they just look like light artifacts. I mean, whenever you're shooting, in the jet black of night, 3:30 a.m., and you're using a flash, or, if you're not, and you have a campfire, there are so many things. Cameras are just not designed to shoot in jet black conditions. They're not. So if you start doing that, if there's any light source, you're going to have artifacts, and some of them are going to look pretty weird. And there was one picture that he had, it looked like this little leprechaun or something, and he's like, yeah, they just look different than us, and this is what he looks like in his dimension. And then there was this other one that looked like Cupid, basically, and he's like, yeah, and that's what they look like, Cupids in their dimension. Look, I have the beauty of the mind is that you can go creative places, and you could allow yourself, to go down the rabbit hole, and you can open yourself up to, thoughts that might seem silly at times. But, once you do that, you still got to come back to earth and now, take a very serious look at it. What I mean by that is, like, when I go ghost hunting, I always say to people that I'm ghost hunting with as well, listen, during the ghost hunt, like, let's side on it's paranormal. Like, let's follow it, meaning, like, if you hear a knock down the hallway, if it's not immediately, debunkable, well, let's go see. Let's go see if, there's something there. Let's play into it. And my point being is, you got your whole life and equipment and everything else to debunk it. Debunking, 99% of everything you're going to do is going to be debunkable. Everything you capture is going to be debunkable. I mean, that's just, I've heard people say, like, on Ghost Hunters once I heard them say, like, 80% of all activity is, can be debunked. I honestly think 99% of all activity can be debunked. But that's why when you're doing the ghost hunt or the investigation, open your mind and be more open to the possibility that whatever you're experiencing may in fact be paranormal. But when it's over, look, man, apply science and rationale and the skeptical mind and do everything you can to prove that that evidence is in fact, explainable. And if you do all that and, you can debunk, 9 out of 10 things, and you have one thing that you can't, then great. You're in a great scenario. But so I guess my point being is that when it comes to his photos of Cupid and this little, shamrock looking guy, I'm all about opening, my mind up, to the fact that there might be something really strange like this that exists out there in the universe. But it's just knowing what I know about artifacts and shooting in the dark, it just seemed like how could you take a stance that is so definitive on something so easily explainable? And it's not even like I'm going to a crazy scenario to explain how he got this stuff. It's just like, no, it's just artifacts. That's it. It's digital static. It's cameras are not built to work in the dark. So that's easy. That's not taking some, massive step. It's not like some 6-part process to debunk it. It's just something very simple that we know. Cameras are not meant to work in jet black conditions. And, but, he just took these hardline stances that these goofy pictures were, in fact, extraterrestrials. So my point being is that film was a hard swallow for me. That was very difficult to get through that one and have the same kind of level of interest and respect for Greer. And I do respect him, and just because of what he's compiled and the approach that he's taken by bringing in all of these military people and government officials and NASA and astronauts, and that's what I mean, getting serious about this stuff and kind of trying to force the truth out. But here's what's weird about this Above Top Secret documentary. It was like Above Top Secret, the machinery. Basically it was the advertisement was, I forget the exact words, but it was basically, here's the technology behind disclosure. And this is what he was going to, I guess, show everybody and talk about in this documentary. But here's where it gets really weird for me right away. Greer's big thing is he is dead against Tom DeLonge and that whole group. Lou Alzando, he has, basically waged war against those guys. He's saying straight up that they are, full of shit, that they all work for the industrial military complex, which I agree with that. And that, Alzando is, a basically, a black cat of misinformation. That's what he did when he was in the military. He's a known disinformation operative. And he basically, called these guys out on different evidence that they did. And he was basically the first one to stand up and say, look, all these guys are full of shit. They're all working together. They all work for the industrial military complex. They basically recruited Tom DeLonge, not the other way around. Tom DeLonge did not assemble a team around him. The team, let Tom believe that, and they recruited him. And, Greer was the first one to say that, Alzando, Knapp, Jeremy Corbell, Christopher Mellon, all these guys are all working together. And they're working together with the government, basically. And he says that again, and they go after them pretty hard in this Above Top Secret documentary. And what's really bizarre about this is when I first started watching this, I thought this was like the fourth film or the next film of Dr. Greer because he's in it the whole time. But no, he's partnered with the Cousins brothers of Third Phase of Moon, where if you know anything about Third Phase of Moon, it's a UFO site on the web on YouTube that is openly known for offering up ridiculously fake UFO footage. It's Blake and Brent Cousins. They are these two brothers that live in Hawaii, and it's really, really. They had this really kind of strange way of talking. If you guys have seen them talk, you'll know what I'm talking about. Just weird phrasing. It's almost like, God, what could I? You know how Christopher Walken just has his own cadence? Brent and Blake Cousins kind of have their own cadence. And there's two of them, and they both talk the same. It's super weird. But what's really bizarre to me is they're known. I mean, they're known for being like massive hoaxers, and they always try to like get their way out of it by like they'll post something that they clearly know is fake, and they'll go, God, what is this? This looks really weird. I don't know. There's a lot of things here in this video that you could argue that would make it real, but I don't know. You know, maybe it's not. You know, tell me in the comments what you think. But they know. They know. There's no way they don't know. Like these videos, some of them are just so fucking ridiculous that I can't even watch anything on the channel because I know it's pure BS. And this is what blew me away. Why is Greer partnering with them? Because to me, that completely discredits him saying, oh, well, you know, Lou Elizondo and, you know, is full of shit. And same thing with Tom DeLonge and Christopher Mellon and like all these dudes, you know, George Knapp. It's like, Greer, you can't go after them and say that they are ridiculous, but then partner with arguably the biggest like UFO hoaxer site on the web. And here's what's even more strange. I don't know why this film was made, because it's basically Greer being interviewed the whole time, and it's almost like a best of clips, like an information from all three films. There's information on, I think it's called ADA, the little tiny alien thing, which, you know, one college said that it's human DNA and it's a deformed fetus. And then Greer argued and said no. There were different studies that said it was unknown what the DNA structure was. It sure looks alien as hell to me, to be honest. But they went over that and like the basic, you know, all the good, the goodies, the good information that was in that was, you know, interesting. And then they went over the information that was presented and unacknowledged. And he talked about all that, and it was the same thing, kind of like a highlight reel. And then he talked about CE5, and they showed, you know, these same videos. And I will say this, the videos that are in CE5, the stuff that he's filmed in the sky that he said occurs after he does this CE5 protocol, there's some really dope shit that they filmed out in the desert. But again, there's nothing to say it's because of this CE5. If you go out in the desert, you know, outside of Vegas, and you film year-round, and you do CE5 every night, there's going to be nights where things happen, and you film things in the sky. Well, you're doing CE5 every night, though. So when it happens, you can just claim, oh, CE5 brought it. Well, you did it every night, though, which he doesn't address at all. But essentially, Greer just, you know, it's like this interview in his house where he's walking around and just like I said, it's like a highlight reel of his three previous films. And then at the very end, he basically says, um, they're going to try the government and these unacknowledged groups. What he's been saying for three films is that they're going to try to militarize this, and it's because they don't want the technology to change. A lot of the stuff that Skyfall, says, which again, I've always felt there's credit to this. I mean, if you look at who is in control right now, it is the industrial military complex and what Skyfall refers to as the power elite, which are, gas, oil, those regimes basically. I don't want to use the word cabal because it sounds so Batman, but the people that. And I've always said the richest people in the world, like, you don't know who they are, you don't know their names, like they're that wealthy, like it's those people, and basically what Greer says in here is that this is going to continue because they don't want this technology out, because the second this technology is out, then it would render these companies obsolete. If suddenly every person in the world or in America had an abundance of energy, meaning you didn't have to pay, for your gas, you didn't have to pay for oil, you didn't have to pay for your electric bill. At the same time, everything that you buy, the prices would almost drop through the floor. I mean, there's oil in almost everything you buy, right? There's plastic in almost everything you buy. It would dramatically affect life. And he's saying that once those things are rendered obsolete, then the power structure is going to change, and who controls the world is going to change. And the people that do that, or who are in control of the current, oil industry, the war industry, the weapons industry, military industry, that those people will not have the same control over mankind, period. So he's saying that, which is, it's interesting because it's the same prediction that Skyfall made, which the next podcast we're going to talk about Skyfall, because I have some interesting information for everybody to consider and to look at. But essentially the idea being that there's technology out there that has existed for 50 years where cars could run, hydrogen engines, or cars could run on water, like tap water, zero gravity, 0 point energy, like these things that pretty much, make life really, really easy for a lot of people. And it would just bring about a massive change where, like I said, the people in control of those things would no longer be in control. So Greer is saying that's going to happen. And he explains a couple different technological, theories of what he thinks is going on as far as technology goes. But he basically, the number one thing that he talks about is that there is technology that, again, he goes back to the subconscious mind. That basically there's technology that exists that allows us to travel through wormholes and through space and all this stuff, and it's really, really far-fetched and hard to wrap your head around. Really, really hard to wrap your head around. But he's saying there's also technology that exists, which we've seen this, especially in the Agua Dia footage, where you can travel through mass without affecting it. And if you haven't seen the Agua Dia footage, check it out. That's the one where you're watching this little ship hover across, I think it's Puerto Rico, and it goes, this little thing that's flying around, it's like it's circular, it has no propulsion, no wings, nothing, and it's a great clear shot of it. Apparently Puerto Rico has better cameras than our, our military fighters. I just got, not to go back to it, but I hate that footage, that the 3 clips that were released. It's just such shitty footage that doesn't show anything really that's impressive. But anyways, the Agua Dia footage does show that this this thing goes under the water and hits waves and comes out of it. It doesn't slow down. It doesn't affect anything. So there's reason to believe that we have technology that can travel through mass without affecting. That means through a wall. I mean, the reason that's important is because if you're flying through space, we have a tendency to believe that space, like a square foot of space, right? Like right in front of you, a square foot of air, of emptiness. The belief that that's empty. It's not empty. There is, matter. Like I forget if it's a neutron or a proton, but there is matter within that empty space. And the faster and faster you travel, the more and more you're pushing that matter. And the idea that if you get closer and closer to the speed of light, you're like pushing up against basically a wall that would rip a ship apart. So in order to travel past that, you would have to have ships and technology that can travel through mass without affecting it. Basically, the Star Wars stuff, or Star Trek, the beam me up, where you can basically take my mass and transfer it down to a planet, and somehow that works. So here's the thing. Overall, the film's it's not great. It's not cut together great, which is really weird because Dr. Greer's films are done very well, and there's a lot of money put into it. I think Greer's raised a couple $1 million to make all 3 of his documentaries, and you can tell it's all very high-end footage, great animation, great editors, great directors, great sound design. And then this above top secret, it's just a piece. It's a piece, man. It's like, it's just not good. It's not raw in the way that it's intentional. It just looks like a clip, like I said, like a clip show of like basically Greer walking around his property, and they're cutting footage from all his films. But back to the partnership with the Cousins brothers and Third Phase of Moon. Again, if you guys want to check this website out, Third Phase of Moon. Not the moon. It's weird. Third Phase of Moon. Go check it out. It's super, like I said, it's just like 2/3 of the footage they show on there is CGI, like fake stuff. Now, they are big. There's a lot of people around the world that, like millions of subscribers. And the reason is, I get it. The average human being just wants to be kind of fascinated. They're not going to jump into this, head first and try to be like a ufologist or something. But I don't know why Greer did that, because the fact that he's partnering up with them just makes me want to write him off too. And I don't like that. I hate that because, like I said, there were some things about his beliefs that I think kind of coincided with mine. And I think, the fact that he was the first one to bring all these experts together, governors, like I said, ex-pilots, commercial and military pilots, the fact that he is a firm believer that it has a lot to do with the water, that there are many UFO species, or maybe not many, but there are definitely species that live under the water and come and go from the water, which I think I'm heavy into that. We can do a whole podcast about that. And the idea that I do believe that there are large corporations that obviously don't want major change to happen in the way of 0-point energy and stuff like that. And that makes sense to me. And we've always used war and fear to either stop change or create change. And that seems to be going on. And especially right now, suddenly, the narrative everywhere on every news station is, like I said, lock up your wives. They're having sex with their wives. They're changing our DNA. There's all these records now that suddenly exist of all these horrible things happening. And suddenly Jeremy Corbell has all this information. He's the guy that's going to tell us all what's real and what's not. And it's just all going to a really weird place right now. And I would love to know what you guys think. Why on earth would Dr. Greer accuse, Tom DeLonge, Jeremy Corbell, George Knapp, Lou Alzando, Chris Mellon? Like, why would he accuse all those guys of being, liars and disinformation agents? And not that I think that they aren't, but, he's making the straight up accusation that they're a part of the, industrial military complex and the quote, shady, I guess you can call it cabal that is, running all of this. He's saying they're doing that, but then he turns around and partners with arguably the biggest hoaxers on the web. It just goes to show you, man, like you really have to do your own research, man. You just can't buy into, most of what you see on television or even online. It just sucks because to me, we're running out of people that are trustworthy when it comes to this narrative of what is going on right now. Something is most definitely going on right now, which we're going to talk about in the next episode with about Skyfall. But there's a reason why, as this war in the Ukraine ramps up, all of this madness about UFOs is back, and it's all threatening shit. You know what I mean? It's all about how it's going to do us all in. But anyways, we'll get into that on the next episode. But I would love to know what you guys think about Above Top Secret. If you haven't seen it, you can rent it. It's on all the different rental sites, and you guys tell me. Why would Dr. Greer accuse Alzando, Corbell, all those guys of being liars and fakers and hoaxers and all this stuff, and then turn around and partner with Blake and Brent Cousins on Third Phase of Moon? Let me know what you guys think. I am very interested to see your thoughts on this. Does this mean that we should ixnay old Dr. Greer too? Does this take away any credibility that he had? Is this another ixnay on the hombre? Like, can we, is he just BS machine too? And I hope not, but I don't understand what's going on right now with him and this partnership. So let me know what you guys think. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I will be back tomorrow with more. All the best.